thank you very much for coming to see what God has done with this miraculous place. So many people have been involved, either by their donations or their time, their effort, their energy, or their prayers. This lodge, isn't this wonderful? Absolutely wonderful.
Kids are at the very heart of what Patch does. How many of you know families that just struggle? We're here to help. This place, beautiful views. You know why we have it? So it doesn't feel like counseling.
There's 520 acres. There's a little Klickitat River bounding on the south. Blockhouse Creek, which falls there, cuts through the property. It's mostly canyon land, but there's some farmland. There's about 50 acres of really good farmland up in the northwest corner.
My wife had said we have the 50 acres on the back that had hay, and she wasn't wanting me to go down that dangerous road with a hay wagon. And so I had that in the back of my mind, and just talking to Tom, I said, well, maybe we just give the 437 acres instead of just a building spot. My father, all through the years, had wanted to do something more than just paying tithe, but he left it to my sister and I.
And he realized that he wasn't going to be living much longer, and he asked that we do something for the Lord's work with the property.
So we felt that letting it go to Project Patch would be something my father would really appreciate if he'd known about it.
And we're happy at this time that this property can be used for young people for Jesus' sake.
It's about 33 years ago. It doesn't seem possible. My roommate was Dale and Dave Tupper. And we used to come out here, hike. I remember going camping, and I used to think how beautiful a place this is. I never would think that 33 years later, look what we have, look what's being built here. When I moved out west again, I used to do some taxes for my mother, and I said, Mom, what is this deduction that you're trying to claim called Project Patch? And, you kind of watch over my mom, what type of money was she giving to and to who? And so I learned a little bit about Project Patch, and then I went to Washington Conference. It was like the same week, I had to put in my budget an amount for a loan for Project Patch. Remember that, Tom, back in those days? And I thought, boy, this Project Patch must be something. And then I went to Idaho, and we actually saw Project Patch, and I thought, wow, what a facilities. And now I look at this. This is amazing, what is being done for families. And I think it's a real need. In fact, Tom, you mentioned not too long ago, you thought that sometimes we think kids are the problems, but really, we need to deal with parents. And that's what this facilities is really about, is to deal with families and with parents. And I'm quite excited about that, to see what the future is. It's neat to see a facilities like this within the Northwest. And so to Tom and your staff, North Pacific Union just wants to say, well done, and we're with you. There's some challenges ahead here, but it's fantastic what's being done. So thank you so much.
We're here to dedicate this place to God because He's the one who brought us this far. My wife and I began Project Patch 26 years ago. Bonnie, where are you? Stand up. She is the impetus behind the program. I convinced her years ago, about 28 years ago, to take kids into our home from the county, and these were delinquent kids. And she's never forgiven me for that. But we had 130 to 180 kids in a space of 18 months. And I was on the Juvenile Services Commission for Hood River County as well. And that was a volunteer thing, and I was pastoring at the time. And one evening, I come home late, and I'm frustrated because all this work from 15 professional volunteers from the county had put an awful lot of effort into writing a grant to the state, and they turned us down, and I came home, and I crawled into bed about 10:30 at night, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just mumbled it basically underneath my breath, because I thought Bonnie was sleeping. No, she was waiting. She was waiting. And she said to me, I think God wants you to start your own program. And I said, oh, be quiet. You can go to sleep. I'm tired and you're not God. So let me sleep. I just thought that was a quick answer to getting to sleep. But if you know anything about women, you don't shut them up in the middle of the night if they want to talk. So, bless her heart, I went fast asleep, and not long after that, I felt her warm breath against my cheek, and I thought, this is going to be a romantic moment, and so I woke up. Bad news. She whispers in my ear, I may not be God, but either one of us can make your life miserable. Stand up, Bonnie, and take a bow. That was the beginning of Project Patch. I don't know what time of the night it was, but I stayed awake the rest of the night trying to figure out how I can please both of them. And God has taken us on an absolutely fabulous journey. Sometimes it wasn't easy. There were lots of times when my wife was willing to sacrifice to the point of living a summer in the back of a van. And nobody should have to endure that, but she did it gracefully. She's driven vehicles that had the steering column fall out of it when she was trying to pick up groceries and so forth. And it was a marvelous experience in the fact that every time we looked back, not during the event, but every time we looked back, we saw God's leading in everything that happened. And we couldn't see that at the present time because of the personal anxieties that were going on. And I remember when we were gifted the property in Garden Valley, Idaho, and we didn't, we were given the property on condition we buy another 53 acres that was contiguous to that. And I said to the fellow, I don't know how we're going to do this, but if God wants us to do it, we'll do it, because the 53 acres was going to cost us $90,000. And that's when our entire budget for the year for Project Patch was $39,000. And so that's a paradigm shift to go to $90,000 just for the purchase of property. So I figured that I would call the board members to find out how they felt about that. And first board member I talked to said, $90,000, that's not bad. All you need is 90 people to give you $1,000 apiece. That's simple, isn't it? I said, yeah, but who are we going to get to give us $1,000 apiece? Because we weren't getting $1,000 checks at that time. I mean, this is way back when. And he says, I don't know, but I'll give you the first $1,000. Now you only have 89 more people to contact. So I thought that was a good start, and so I called. I tried to call a couple people, but the very next board member that I called that actually answered the phone, I think they had caller ID back then too. But when I talked to this person, I explained the situation, and nobody had seen it. I'm just talking to them on the spur of the moment to find out whether there was a possibility. And so that person said, well, that's not bad. all you need is 9 people to give you $10,000 apiece. And I said, yeah, right, who's going to give me $10,000 for a piece of land in Garden Valley, Idaho? She said, I don't know, but I'll be the first. Now you only have 8 more people to contact. I couldn't wait to call the next board member. I thought maybe they'd say, well, all you need is one person to give you $90,000 and we'd have $10,000, $11,000 extra, but it did not happen. Yesterday I was speaking about secrets, and this is a secret that now can be told. And that was that we, among our board members, we raised $20,000 out of the 90. And we didn't have any more money. I mean, how are we going to come up with $70,000? Well, one of our members of our board was the vice president of the North Pacific Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And he calls me up one day and he says, did you get the money? I said, no. He says, well, I got an idea. I said, what are you whispering for? He says, because I don't not want anybody in this office to know that I'm talking to you. I can tell you who it was. It was Paul Nelson. And he says, I've got an idea. The North Pacific Union has a revolving fund, and I think you qualify for borrowing money from the North Pacific Union Conference. So why don't you make application for that? And I'll back it, but don't you dare tell anybody that I suggested that or I'll deny it. And I said, yes, sir. So we made application for the money, and they said, the treasurer of the association said, well, we'll get to it in November. And I said, you don't understand, we need the money by the 1st of September, and this is the middle of August. And he said, well, we'll see what we can do. You fill out the application, which you've done, and then we'll consider it an executive committee. So about a week later, I call him up and say, well, what do you think? And he says, well, I think that you have the worst financial statement that I have seen in any organization that I have ever looked at. You don't have enough money, you don't have enough resources to pay back $7,000, let alone $70,000. I just said, so does that mean we get the money? And God had it in his mind that we should have a youth facility. So we got it. We bought the land, and the next summer we were talking about building, and so somebody donated $10,000 for the concrete, and the next board meeting they said, so we got the concrete in, we got the foundations in, now what do we do? And they said, what do you do with the foundation? You build on it. We never had enough money to build any of the buildings we did. We just went ahead on faith, and God provided it. And it's a phenomenal facility there. But I want you to know that this is an absolutely phenomenal facility here. And if it hadn't been for Maranatha, it would have been very difficult. So we're at this place. And lo and behold, the Tuppers and Margie said, we want to leave a legacy. And they call us. You know how much we've got into this facility so far? $2.5 million. And we didn't have a clue where we're going to get any of it. But yet, God has seen us through. And now you see the results of what a lot of stupidity on my part, and a lot of faith on God's part, and a lot of trust on God's part has done. to make this happen. And again, thank you, Clarence and Elsie and Margie, for your gift.
Families try hard, and it's easy to start throwing stones at parents, isn't it? It's because they let them watch TV, it's because of this, it's because of that. But I want to tell you that families are trying hard, and they just don't know what to do. As we get kids sitting in the office at the ranch, you ask the parents, when did this kid go from a straight A student to having struggles? When did they go from having great friends going to youth group to the point that they swear at you and run away and do all those other things? And a lot of times parents would point at things like, it's when they started getting this boyfriend, it's when their brother started doing this, it's when they started hanging out with this kid down the road, and they'd point to these people and stuff like that, and we'd start talking with the kids, and once we got to trust them a while, the kids would say, it's when dad moved out. They'd say it's when mom got cancer, it's when grandpa that cared for me died. And they start looking at these things that shocked the family. That one day their family was going just fine, and the next day their family just didn't feel right anymore. How they'd talk didn't work anymore, how they'd relate to each other didn't work anymore, all the fun that they used to have. Sunday morning when they'd jump on the bed and play and watch cartoons isn't the same now that mom's gone. Stepdad moving in and getting bossy all suddenly, the boy that was in charge of doing all sorts of stuff, he doesn't know what to do anymore. And so as we started dreaming about a place that can give the families dignity, not to point fingers, not to blame mom, not to go into this whole scapegoating, but a place that families could come and start doing something about it.
And God will use this facility, He'll use these boards, meeting rooms, all things that many of you have had a lot to do with. He will use all that. He will use the effort of the counselor. He will use the willingness of the people who have come to find healing, and out of that will come a story. Out of that will come a healthy family, a healthier family, being able to go back to their community, back to their church, back to their area, better off.
We want to put our youth ranch out of business. We really do. Because there's no reason kids should suffer more than they need to for their parents' mistakes. And so what we want to do is we want to help parents. We're bringing families together, families that are all going through the same thing. 4 to 7 families. Can you picture it? Imagine this dining hall over here, some circular tables set around. There's going to be families sitting there that look normal. But they're all struggling through something. One week it could be families that are all going through a family member that has cancer. Another week it's going to be family members where they're all single parent families. Another it's going to be a bunch of people because the Bradys are going to be there with all the blended families. And what we're going to do with those families is we're not going to sit around blaming. We're not going to sit around pointing fingers. We're going to play. Does that sound like fun? Play sounds a lot better than therapy, doesn't it? We're going to play, and playing through the games that we do, through the activities that we do, through the things we watch on the screen, through the discussions that we have, through the aha moments that we have, we're going to learn stuff. We're going to learn better ways to communicate. We're going to learn what roles are all about. We're going to learn how we can build the family identity. This is what our family's like. These are the things that are important to us. We're going to learn what good families do to survive this. Not just survive, we're going to learn what good families do to thrive in the midst of all the junk. Because that's what we want for kids, isn't it? And so over 4 to 7 days, we're going to have families here. We're going to have a therapist that guides them through. We're going to have another specialist that adds the extra stuff for families that need it. So one week it's going to be a specialist for single parents, another week for blended families. And over, we're going to do what we can to try to keep kids from suffering.
What happens, what's the formula to bring help to people that have become broken or hurt through circumstances they had nothing to do with, sometimes circumstances they had a lot to do with? What happens to bring healing? We can't put it in a box. We can't put it under a microscope. We can't hook up a meter to it and measure what happened so that we can replicate that. It's a mystery. It's something very, very special that happens here when families begin to come to this facility and embark on their own journey of healing. It will be a bit of a mystery. It will happen between them, the members of their family, a counselor, and God. They will have an impact on their church. They will have an impact on the people that know them at work. And so it's like a stone being cast into a pond, and the ripples just keep going and going and going. And we all have a part of that. This afternoon, I want to introduce you to one of those rocks. No, she's more than a rock. Christina, come on up. This is one of our graduates. First of all, Christina, tell us, what were you like when you first came to Project Patch?
I hated you.
She said she hated me.
I was very angry. I did not want to be around anybody. I was constantly isolating. I was just bitter with everyone and didn't want anyone around.
What was the relationship you had with your family?
It had gone from close to where I would just leave during the day and didn't want to even be home. I would scream and yell at my mom, tell me I didn't want to see her again, that she could have just left me and never adopted me.
As you moved through the program at Patch, what were some of the hardest things that you had to deal with as you moved through your program?
Working on issues in the past, dealing with the divorce and abuse, and learning to trust again.
How did you like the ropes course?
Loved it. I could stay out there all day.
The ropes course is something we also envision for this property, and if you don't know anything about a ropes course, it's kind of it's a challenge course, and it has elements that people do to learn how to work together as a team and break down some of the issues that are between them. What was your favorite part of the ropes course?
The Mohawk Walk.
What did you learn at the Mohawk Walk?
You have to listen to other people.
Why didn't you want to listen to other people?
I just wanted to be able to do everything on my own, so then that way I could prove that nobody was needed.
You wanted to be an island.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the happiest moments you experienced at Patch?
Realizing that I didn't have to run away anymore, and just realizing that there was staff there that I could talk to.
Why don't you hate me now?
I trust you.
How did you get to the point where you could trust me and others, Stephanie and others?
I realized that because people weren't constantly hurting me or just after a little bit walking away and just forgetting that I was ever around, I realized that there were still some people around that were relatively good.
That's good. What's your life like now?
Much better. Mom and I have a constant communication. We fought like maybe twice since I've been back home, and within minutes it was over. We had worked it out instead of it lasting for 3 or 4 days. And we have fun and tease everyone else and drive everybody else nuts.
Where are you in your education, and what are your future plans?
I am finishing my junior year of high school at Mila Vista Academy, and I plan on finishing my senior year and going on to college to be a counselor.
What would you like to say to everybody here about your journey through Patch?
It was amazing to just find out that there's still people out there that you can trust, and also find that God is still there no matter, and He didn't let you do the things that you did. it was amazing.
Great. And I want to thank you too. Project Patch wouldn't exist without Tom's vision. It wouldn't exist without your participation. Keep participating and helping us build. Keep participating in giving, because every penny that you give to Tom, he gets to pay my wages. And I'm really grateful. So thank you very much for what you do for us and what you do for kids. Thank you, Christina.
Now I'd like to introduce to you Glenn Taylor. Glenn has been a friend for a number of years. He used to own Windermere Real Estate along the gorge here, and also was a former mayor of Hood River, and has become a supporter of Patch, and just want you to share with us.
Thank you, Tom. But this is a phenomenal deal, and like many programs like this, it's pretty easy to get involved in you building something. You know, building, people can get excited. You know, you can get this part done, but now it has to operate. And operations takes money. So I just encourage you, if you haven't gotten involved in giving to the Patch program, it's the ongoing operations that really are the struggle. Every month, Tom tells me they write the checks, they're getting ready to mail them, there's no money in the bank, and somehow it all comes in. There's lots of ways to donate, obviously labor, materials, monthly contributions that they can count on, so they can make the payroll, make the bills, that kind of thing. And then think outside the box. You know, you got that pickup that you haven't used for years. Tom will figure out a way to turn that into something useful, either money or all stuff around here. The tractor, the airplane, the motorhome. Airplane, yeah.
Airplane, Harlan.
But it is a good way to get around. But Harley's work too. Sorry, Bonnie. But think outside the box on, you know, just like the Tuppers and the wetlands did. They have some land. What are we going to do with it? Let's turn it into something. It may not be a piece of land that they can use directly in the program, but it certainly can be converted. There's wonderful things in the tax laws that I would just encourage you to keep supporting this project. I think this is just an amazing concept. And I just go back to the young lady. What if they'd have been able to come here first? Would things be different today? Bless all of you that have been involved. Keep going. And Tom, my congratulations to you.
Now, we'd like to invite you to listen to John Friedman, the president of Washington Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, who I consider a tremendous man of God, to share a few words about this dedication. And I just appreciate you coming all the way from Seattle, Washington, to share with us.
It's a joy. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I'm glad for that surprise, because this is why we're here. We're here to see miracles in families. There's a text that you know of very well in Malachi. Behold, I'm going to send to you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord, and he will restore the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers. It was a prophecy given 2,400 years ago, before you were even born. God saw this place. Before Bonnie whispered in your ear, God already had a plan. And we are here today to dedicate this building, more so the ministry, to God today, because he does have a plan for this place. And there's no greater plan than to seeing families restored and children having an opportunity to grow and experience all the things that God has for them. And I believe this is part of the prophetic message that we have as Seventh-day Adventists. I believe that. And it's an amazing thing what God can do when he gets his people working towards something that he wants. Sometimes it takes a wife, Tom, to whisper in your ear. I don't know what it takes, but what I've seen over and over again when God's people get an idea to do something, and then he blesses it, great and wonderful things can happen. So my hat is off to everybody that's contributed. I thank you all for all that you've done. I also recognize that none of this could have happened unless God had laid that on your heart. I also know that he gave you means to be able to help, and you use those means for him. And I know it took a dream that he placed in Tom's heart and in the hearts of the counselors and all those that came to work here, and God has done and wrought a wonderful thing. We need to dedicate this today. It's the right thing to do. When Jesus was raised from the tomb, he spent a few days here, but before he even did that, the first thing he did is he went back to the Father, and there was a dedication at that point. And he received from the Father the recognition that his death and his sacrifice was accepted. And his blood covered the sins of the world. And he could go back with full assurance that those people that he had poured his heart out to and his life out to were now his. And there was a dedication. Right before Pentecost, before the Holy Spirit was poured out, there was another dedication. And God, the Father, gave the Son the Holy Spirit, and he received that Spirit which he poured out upon this world. There will be another dedication, the one that we're all looking forward to, when the marriage supper of the Lamb takes place. It's a great dedication that we all can be at, and I'm looking forward to that day. But there will be a lot of smaller ones in between, all looking and culminating to that time when we are able to spend for all eternity all of our life with our God and our Savior. So this is a good thing. Why do people do this? Because it's the right thing to do. And we have a God who left heaven because it was the right thing to do, and he knew it. And he has placed it in his hearts of his children to do that same thing. So, Tom, thank you for your vision, and everyone for your dedication. But the one now that we want to really focus on is a great and loving God who has called us to dedicate this place in his name.
If you have friends that are curious what we do, we'd love to give tours, we'd love to explain what we do, but it's all about kids and it's all about families. And so we're excited about what God has in store. We have some cookies that are going to be out on the porch and some punch to drink. Please take some time, enjoy yourselves. We're glad that you're here.